So to start today, I wanted to share another one of my sketchbooks because I want to give you guys a glimpse inside of my process. And the reason is that Drawing 2 is a class that's divided into a couple different sections. The first half of the class, we're really concerned with reviewing the technical skills that you've been developing over the course of your lives. And then the second half, we have to shift our focus from thinking about how do we draw things to why do we draw things and what's the best way to communicate the ideas that we have, what's the best way to generate new ideas. This is a really challenging transition because it may be the first time in art classes where you've been given sort of entirely free rein to do whatever interests you, but it's preparing you for life after school when you may not actually have a specific assignment that you need to fulfill. You have to come up with your own assignments and set your own challenges and work with them. So this is a skill that once you develop it will sustain you. And it's not necessarily something that is going to come easily right away. It can take time. And so in order to talk about this a little bit more, I'm just going to share one of my projects with you and kind of take you from these sort of beginning stages to, where I'm at today, more or less. And along the way, we're going to talk about these sort of sketches, thinking about composition, thinking about content, and then the end is going to be a demo where you can see how I work with watercolor and make these puppets for the animations that I'm working on. Now, everybody's different, and you do not have the same interests that I do. So if you guys want to work in a way that's different from what I'm about to show you, that's perfectly fine. I'm just giving you an idea of how I approach my work. And you're going to have to figure out what works for you. If you want to make abstract work and deal with a certain theme or topic or idea by making purely abstract drawings, then I just think that's great. But it's not how I work. Just keep that in mind. I'm not saying you have to, you're expected to make anything that resembles this. It's just a way of demonstrating a process. Now, the project I've been working on, I started back in 2016, and it's sort of a culmination of a lot of different interests that I have. I'm interested in folklore and history and languages and telling stories. And I'd been working with stop motion animation since about 2011. And it seemed like the subject of this project lent itself really well to being animated. And so what happened is I just found a book in Watson Library when I was about ready to graduate. I was going through, the stacks and came across a book of French folk tales that were told in Missouri. And so I checked it out, and it was really interesting because I'd never heard that there was a community of French-speaking people well into the 20th century that lived in rural Missouri. I drove out and started interviewing people for sort of a documentary, and then I wanted to animate some of the stories that they told me and some of the stories that were told. So there was a wide range of segments to this project. There are different techniques that I've been playing around with. For this story of a woman who remembered being sent to the store as a child with her sister and not speaking any English and having to remember, what the words were for the things she needed to buy all the way, while they were walking to the store. This one I did just with simple ink drawings, and you can see they're done just on, every ink drawing is on its own sheet. And there is like a really inexpensive registration system you can buy if you are interested in this. It's called an Acme hole punch. And so the way that that works, it just keeps your pages in alignment. But there are other ways of animating. And so for the folk tales, I've decided to use these sort of very colorful watercolor puppets and things like that. So I'll share some of those with you, okay? So this is a team of mules that I drew now, I guess, a couple of years ago. And you can see how the puppets are jointed. I don't think that I'm going to actually use these, but I've held on to them. If I turn them over, you can see on the back that I was playing around with different sorts of ways of making joints and hinges. Back in when I started, I was using, like little metal pins to sort of keep everything jointed, but they are really unsightly. You can still tell they're there, and they're not interesting to look at. So I started making things like this with long sort of ribbons that were kind of cut out of a flat drawing that connect a couple different pieces that allow for movement. I like them still. They seem useful, but I have developed something else. So I will show you guys the puppet that I made this week. So this is for a folktale involving a hunter who never really has any bullets on him when he needs them. So he sees a deer and shoots it in the head with a peach seed, and then later on he encounters that same deer and it has this big peach tree growing out of the top of its head. So I need to draw this. You can see I've outlined everything in pencil just to make sure that I get the anatomy right. I was using YouTube for reference. You can see the previous video that I posted for my process there. So there wasn't a particular photograph that was ever going to be useful. I had to kind of find different poses of deers in motion that would show me what I needed, right, to get this. When you're using watercolor, work slowly, let things dry, come back, see if it's lightened at all, and if it has, then, reinforce the darker areas. I'm going to cut this out and, sew the joints together so that it's movable. So I'd like to take a little bit more time while you're just watching the technical process of this to talk a little more about the new sort of emphasis that we're going to be placing on conceptual thinking in drawing. As you can see, I do a lot of research. It's taken me 4 years to get to this point because it's a large project and I keep coming back to it and there's always something new to draw, right? But that's not probably going to be the thing that excites you and makes you want to work. That's what you need to identify. And maybe you don't yet have enough information to know, what direction you want to head in, and that's fine. Keep doing tests, see what seems the most engaging and exciting at the moment. Right now, we're going through something that is pretty unprecedented. The whole sort of fabric of society is being kind of re-examined and put on hold for the moment. And so this is, I think, a good opportunity to really assess like what it is that you're thinking about and feeling and start processing it in a visual form, whatever that is. Maybe you want to make something like this. Like maybe you want to make some paper dolls or some puppets of the people that you're living with, and you could stage sort of scenes in your house of kind of what you guys are going through. That's perfectly fine and a creative way to sort of deal with the stress of this situation. Other things, you can work, like I said, very abstractly. Whatever it is that excites you, I think that's what you need to start identifying and gravitate towards that. You have to learn to process your lived experience and turn it into something expressive, right? That maybe it can contribute to society, or maybe it just brightens your day or somebody else's day, right? Or it could lead them to a new way of thinking about the world. Good luck. Let me know what you come up with, and I'll see you again next week. Okay, bye.